So let's just do a quick history of diabetes and how we get to this point in the first place. So diabetes starts out as a disease of what we call insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. We're only going to talk about that today, which means that the muscles in your body become resistant to insulin entering them. So it's kind of like you're trying to eat, but you're keeping your mouth shut. So the muscles are trying to get sugar in them, and that's where it needs to go in order to be used properly, but the fork just keeps hitting the mouth. And so then you end up with a pile of food where it doesn't belong. And in this case, it's sugar that's in your blood vessels when it belongs in your muscles. Your muscles are, in a sense, starving for food. They would like to have some, but the sugar is just out there circulating in the system. And that circulating sugar causes a lot of problems. It goes to the kidneys, for instance. And in the kidney's job is to make sure that not one drop of sugar leaves the body. But if you have diabetes and you end up with really high blood sugars, the kidneys can't possibly do that job. So they work to exhaustion. They keep trying to pull back the sugar, and they can't do it, and then they continue to try to do it, and they're damaged because they're overworked. The same thing happens to your pancreas, which is the organ that makes insulin. Your body's not using insulin properly, and so there's too much sugar, so the pancreas keeps cranking out more and more insulin. And over time, it wears it down. It tuckers it out. It can't keep producing that much insulin. And so it gets damaged. And then through a lot of mechanisms that we don't fully understand, that circulating sugar does a lot of damage in other parts of the body too. It damages blood vessels directly and indirectly by creating a buildup of cholesterol and making it easier for you to have a heart attack. But it actually also physically damages the walls of some blood vessels in, like I said, a mechanism we don't completely understand. Also, all that circulating sugar damages nerves. And it may damage nerves by damaging their blood supply, which consequently damages the nerves, but there's probably some evidence that it also directly does some damage to nerves. So, and those are just the tip of the iceberg, kind of all the changes that go on when you've got too much sugar in your body. So, for a long time, people knew that there was diabetes, but we didn't have anything that we could do about it. You got diabetes, and that's what you had. People didn't tend to get this type 2 diabetes quite so much until we became a wealthier country and we started eating a diet that was kind of destined to cause us to end up with diabetes. So in a lot of ways, type 2 diabetes is a preventable disease and a controllable disease. But what we found that it's also at least partly genetic. So some people can eat all the sugar and whatever, as much as they want. They can become really obese, and they don't get diabetes. Most people will, but there are some people who don't. There are other people who can get down to essentially a normal weight, and even though they have what we know is type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance diabetes, they can have a normal weight and they can still have problems. And that usually in those people there's some sort of a genetic load. Their grandfather had it, their grandmother had it, their great-grandmother had it, and it just kind of passed down through the generations. So even though we know there are things that you can do to control diabetes, I definitely don't want you to think that diabetes is your fault.